Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Self-Care Sunday podcast. I'm Kyle, and with me is Shannon. We are your hosts for this podcast. If you haven't met us yet, that means you haven't listened to our first 5 episodes.
Oh, yes.
5 whole episodes that you can catch up with. And we would definitely recommend starting there because there's so much good stuff.
Yeah, what a journey it's been, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like every podcast we start, I start out laughing.
It's true. It's the perfect intro.
It is. So, as our regular disclaimer, this podcast is not intended to be used in the place of therapy. Any activities or information from this podcast that elicit strong emotional responses, you should please seek counseling by reaching out to the Counseling Services Center or your local mental health provider.
Yes, indeed. And there are a lot of services you can access if you need them. So welcome to our episode number 6. Today we'll be talking about creativity and all that encompasses.
Well, most of it. I think there's so many things that encompass this topic, and we could probably talk about it for days.
That's very true. Very true.
So in this episode, we will discuss the magic and mystery of creativity. Wow, that rhymes. So we know what you're thinking. Creativity? I'm not creative. I should skip this episode. Don't you dare. We'll show you how creative you are in ways beyond art making, and how creativity of all kinds helps us learn about ourselves, feel better, and express ourselves in ways beyond just talking.
Mm-hmm. There is a lot to creativity beyond what we judge ourselves in our art.
Mm-hmm.
So sticking with our theme of the season, operational definition, we're going to start with the idea of what creativity can be. And oh boy, is that hard to define. So, I often think of creativity as art making, and I think we've been kind of told that's how we think of art making, but creativity is way more beyond just making art. And you do this on a regular basis. So, for example, if you've ever been locked out of your house or your car and you had to figure out how to get back in, you had to be creative to do that. We use our resources, we try and figure out and problem solve to make that happen. I definitely remember one time getting locked out of my house in high school and then having to break into my house. So one of my most creative efforts that I'm still super proud of. I won't tell you how I did it so that you can't break into my house. So we do this a lot, even when we improvise in our conversations with random people we meet, right? You have to come up on the spot of what you're going to talk about. We do this when we pick out our clothes every day. We are being creative, trying to find an outfit, trying to match some things, trying to find our vibe and our style.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely now that we're navigating this mess of the digital world, we're constantly having to research and problem solve and figure out how Zoom works and all the great things. So if you are into cooking, gardening, interior decorating, carpentry, tea making, you're creative. You're already doing it.
Mm-hmm. Even just organizing things, creative,
Totally.
So difficulties and stigmas of creativity. One of the most common rationales for avoiding artistic activities is some variation of, but I'm not good at art. First of all, you're wrong.
You're wrong.
You're wrong. Incorrect. Human beings are creative by nature. We all have our own unique abilities tied to creativity. The struggle sometimes is to find the outlet that suits you the most. If anyone knows me, I have 7 million different hobbies, and I don't know, it's a problem for me because I'm very creative and I like to do so many things, and then I get discouraged from doing them because there's too many things. So that's also a barrier to creativity. Sometimes you feel stuck. So
Totally.
the struggle is to either find the outlet that suits you the most or choose between all of the outlets that you enjoy.
Which is not always easy.
No, I think that's one of the biggest problems of being a creative person. It's I have so many ideas. Which one do I run with? And then how do I stay with that idea? And then I might forget other ideas and remember them later. It's a mess up here.
Oh, definitely. I feel like, and I mean, I
Mm.
don't think I'm alone in this, but my messy creative spaces are just
Oh,
littered with materials in
yeah,
hopes that I stumble into something great.
yeah.
Yes.
And I'm like big on organization, but
Mhm.
sometimes when I get really into that creative headspace, my physical space is wild. Like my office right now, my desk is like crazy. I have markers everywhere, washi tape, like I've been bullet journaling a lot. So I have all that supplies out. I just have so many different things everywhere. And it's hard to keep track of all the stuff that I have. So sometimes I buy more supplies because I don't remember that I already have that supplies.
Uh-huh. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, the struggle.
Very real, very real. And
So,
I do think it is like it's kind of telling that we have all of these materials because we see such a value in being creative or like expressing what we need to in those moments. And
mhm,
it's interesting because I do think people have those tools laying around no matter what they do. I think of people who like crochet or knit. Those things are still laying around their houses. If you like cooking, your kitchen's probably a mess, right? There's like
mhm.
all of these pieces of it. It's cool.
So funny. I have a bunch of yarn on my couch right now in my office.
That's awesome.
Um, oh, back on track. So,
Back on
see,
track.
this is what happens, your train of thought just goes somewhere. Um,
Creativity.
we've previously, geez, mentioned the concept of your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is nice and all, but in order to grow and develop new skills or have experiences, you need to step outside of your comfort zone. Creating art is a great way to do that because there's
Mhm.
just so many different things you could try. And like I said before, you might be feeling like, I'm not good at art, so I'm not going to try anything. That just holds you back.
Mm, definitely. It becomes a barrier instead of allowing yourself to go with what you're feeling.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's true. It does tie into that next point too of like sometimes when we think of ourselves as not being creative or not being artistic, it's because we have this idea of what it's supposed to look like. It's supposed to be pretty and amazing and good quality, and we can't make something unless we're the best at it. And I think that is a huge barrier because you don't have to be anything. It's just finding what works for you and making something. And
Yeah.
I think the as we get away from this idea of like perfection or quality, I think we connect with it way better. And you were so good at this when you were in like elementary school. You just like made crayon drawings and you were proud of them.
Yeah. I think that point of perfectionism is really important to talk about because that used to be a struggle for me. Like, I've always been a creative person, but I'm also prone to perfectionist tendencies. So it was really hard to feel good about my art at certain points because it's like it's not perfect. It's not how I want it to look exactly. And a great way, here's some tips if you want to try to break out of your perfectionist ideals. Try to do a string painting. So, a string painting is where you take some string, it could be like yarn, embroidery floss, like that friendship bracelet string, whatever you choose. Get a canvas and paint white on it. And then get like different little cups or bowls. I used paper bowls when I did this because it was just an easier cleanup. Um, and then you can pour paint in there, put some like paint. You don't have to use like a paint medium. I use like a medium to make it a little more fluid, but then you can put the string in it and then just like put it on your canvas in some sort of pattern and then pull it. You can look up YouTube videos. People will explain how to do it, and then just like get a bunch of different colors, lots of string, pull it all over your canvas. It'll create something so cool, and there's no way to really control it. Like you can have some element of control, but this is just like one of my favorite activities because it creates such beautiful paintings, and you don't have to worry about perfection.
Definitely. Yes. I feel like anything that allows you to just like give up that sense of control or like trying so hard to control, it really helps us to embrace the freedom of creativity.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Same thing with like acrylic pours. Those are wonderful. Those are some of my
Mhm.
favorite paintings. You can just pour a bunch of colors into a cup there's a little bit more to it. So look up some YouTube videos if you're interested. But you can pour a bunch of different colors into a cup and then flip it upside down over a canvas and just let it do its thing. Part of that is you, part of that is the medium, just controlling how it flows.
Yep,
So try those out if you're stuck in that perfectionist mindset.
definitely. Just get the ball rolling first.
And to once again revisit the law of attraction and manifestation, this is something I could probably harp about every day. We'll wrap this section up with an example. So, say you're asked to make something creative. Your options are to say, I am not creative, or sure, I can do that. If you pick the first option, you have created or contributed to a narrative about yourself that says you are not creative. Furthering this narrative only forces you into a non creative box where you're less likely or not at all likely to try creative things in the future. This can then lead to envy, jealousy, and feelings of depression or inadequacy when it comes to creativity. Not a great road to follow. But if you choose the second option, then this opens up a world of possibilities for you in terms of being creative. You can try, which is the best thing you can do. The worst thing you can do is not try. Maybe your first attempt isn't great. That's cool. Just try
Mhm.
again or find a different outlet.
Totally, totally. And I feel like this goes so deep too. So I'm going to reference Brene Brown, as we tend to do on this podcast.
Yes, will happen again later.
So she has this concept of what she calls a shitty first draft. It's She applies it to a lot of our like communication and the stories that we tell ourselves about situations that are happening in our life. But I think it applies to our creativity just as much, because sometimes it takes just doing and acknowledging that you feel a certain way and that it comes out in a certain way. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect or finalized or finished when it comes out for the first time. And whether that is your conversations with people, whether that's your creative acts in the world, allow yourself to have those shitty first drafts. It just comes out how it needs to. It doesn't mean you can't clean it up or finish it up if you want to pursue that. But sometimes when we block ourselves from just allowing the first draft to come out, then we're just stuck with it. And emotionally, that isn't good for us. We just hold on to things and we become resentful, when really we could just get something out. And I do think creative spaces like making things and being able to express yourself in creative ways helps us emotionally just as much as talking and communicating.
Yes, for sure. Are you familiar with the idea of like the baby elephant and limiting beliefs?
I don't know. I don't think so.
So I learned this yesterday.
Hmm.
um, there is an example where they talk about like the way they train elephants to be gentle.
Hmm.
When they're young, they're like, it's kind of sad to talk about, but when they're young, they tie them to like a tree with a chain or a rope. Um, and so they can't break away from the chain, like they can't break it, which then teaches them like they aren't strong. So then they grow up believing that they're not strong, and then they like choose not to try anymore because they have those limiting beliefs that were instilled in them in childhood.
Yep.
So I think that happens to a lot of us. We have these like limiting beliefs from our past experiences that prevent us from moving forward.
Hmm.
But the point of discussing this sad treatment of baby elephants is to point out like you are strong. You are not your younger self. You are not your past self that failed. You are a different version of yourself. Every moment of every day, you're growing in some way, you're developing. So letting your past rule your present is not at all conducive to furthering your growth and having better
Hmm.
experiences.
That one hit hard. 'Cause I feel like a lot of
Yeah.
people fall into that because we are told early on that we're not good at something or that we shouldn't even try at something.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden it becomes a concrete identity for ourselves.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people listening to this might have those experiences where you proved yourself wrong after someone else told you you couldn't do something, right? Like you were able to break those beliefs.
Mhm.
And those are really relieving. because it tells us that we are way more than we ever imagine ourselves to be.
Yeah, there's those alternative outcomes from narrative therapy.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The good stuff right there.
Yes. Ugh, I took a class with Kyle 2 years ago now. Ugh, 2 years ago. I
Mm.
took a class with Kyle about narrative therapy. It was great.
Oh, it's good stuff. It's my
Yes.
favorite. Ah, so moving on from that, I feel like this is a perfect place to kind of jump into what can you do? So maybe you just listened to that story of how baby elephants are kind of conditioned into that way of thinking, and you're like, oh, I can relate to that. How do we break out of it? I I think at least those small steps are so important. They might seem insignificant, but you probably do express yourself in ways that you're not even conscious of. So I think back to elementary, middle school, high school. I was such a doodler, right? Like you're in class, teachers are talking, you're just doodling on your paper. And
Mhm.
maybe some of you have had that teacher of like, eyes up, don't doodle,
Mm.
all this stuff. Well, you can go and tell them that research says they're wrong, and you don't have to pay attention like that because all of the research says that doodlers are just as able to take in information as people who are able to sit and focus and look. So, if you are a doodler by nature, you're doing something for yourself. You're giving
Yeah.
yourself a place to put your energy and your focus, and it helps you to get through situations where you're stuck, right? You can't get up from class, you're stuck there listening to someone talk. You're allowing yourself to feel and express how you need to. So I say embrace that and try and notice if you already have those natural patterns that you doodle, do those to help yourself relieve stress. They are there for that purpose.
Yeah.
And you found a way. So do it.
Yes, yes, yes. I am a doodler. I
Mhm.
identify with the doodlers.
Aha. Doodler. Doodler City here.
There's also here's another fun thing you could do for doodles. Look up Zen tangles. I know
Mm.
Kyle, you do those.
Oh, yeah.
Those are fun. Zen tangles, scribble drawings, also
Mhm,
good.
mhm, mhm.
And then just like there's so many cool doodling videos on TikTok. You know, TikTok has everything you could have ever ask for.
It's a creative person's dream.
Ugh, and also nightmare.
And yes, yeah, both.
But yeah, look up some fun doodles, maybe even create your own patterns, like Kyle said. Doodling can really relieve stress. It helps me pay attention because sometimes
Mhm.
if I'm sitting there listening to my professor talk about absolutely nothing while they work their way slowly towards the point they're trying to make. No shade. But you know, it's like so hard to sit through some classes. So doodling really helps me pay attention, but also not fall asleep right where I'm sitting.
Totally.
And then some more positive coping mechanisms. We're going to talk about expression without judgment. Make a thing, anything. Keep it, scrap it, just make something with any materials. An old shoebox, a cardboard box you're throwing away, forks, spoons, knives, the snow, dirt, anything. Anything that's accessible to you. Just do it. See what happens. You never know.
It's true. It's true. Got to embrace those like creative moments that happen spontaneously too, because it doesn't have to be this formal process. Like if you're like, oh, feeling silly and you want to make something with what's on your plate, do it. See what that's like. So, into our next section here, the do's and do nots. Do not start a project with these huge expectations. And you all know this, right? Whether it's homework or whether it's a project you're working on in your own time, if you go in with this huge, big, grand expectation for what it's going to look like, it's either A, not going to live up to it, or B, overwhelm you so that you don't even start it. So start with a vision of what you need to express yourself and see where that takes you. Check in with yourself, see what you feel, and go with that. Sometimes it's hard to have these expectations because sometimes they do end up letting us down. That doesn't feel good. So if you are in this process, stop judging yourself. Let yourself just make it, see what happens. Everything can be changed and new directions can come up, and let yourself just go with the twists and turns of the road. And then do express yourself how you need to without feeling obligated to share it with people. Sometimes that gets in our way too, right? Like I'm making something and I want to post it on Instagram or I want to show it to somebody, but I'm worried about the comments or what someone's going to say. You don't have to share anything you make with anyone. It can be totally for you. So if you want to make something and destroy it, do that. That's okay. You can embrace that as well. And try and avoid that censorship of like, oh, I'm not going to make something because I'm worried about what someone's going to say. That self censorship gets in our way so much and it stops us from just opening the door to see what can happen. We miss out on a lot of opportunities that way. So kick that self censor out for a little bit. Just do what you need.
Yeah, I definitely identify with that. Like, not even starting something just because you have like an assumption about how it's going to go.
Hmm.
You don't know how anything is going to turn out ever.
Yep.
That's just like the law of the universe. You might be
Totally.
great at something and then you maybe aren't so great at it the next time you do it. That's fine. We all have our days. So don't limit yourself.
Definitely.
Do trust the process. Some art videos that I watch are so amazing because you can't always tell what the final product will look like.
Mhm.
And sometimes I watch these painting videos and they're adding like all these colors that just don't really make sense to me. And it's like, how is that going to look good? And then they pull away and it's amazing and a mind blowing piece of art. Like, I don't know. So
Unbelievable.
sometimes it's going to look shitty before it looks amazing.
It's true. That zoom out, zoom in, right? Like as soon as you zoom out and you're like, oh, this looks different than I thought.
Yeah, which is, like, honestly a great metaphor for life. Like, when you zoom into certain parts, it doesn't look good, but when you look at the bigger picture, it's all worth it.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
Thank you. So trust the process and allow yourself to just keep going. Go with the flow. Do your own thing. Do
Mhm.
your thing, honey. And do not let other people tell you how to feel about your art. Kyle kind of already touched upon this, but what matters is that you like it, and personal validation is far more important than external validation. Seeking validation within yourself is the building block, really. You need to work on accepting yourself, loving yourself, appreciating what you create. It doesn't matter what other people think about it. And, just an example, like Van Gogh's work was not appreciated until after his time. I think for a lot of his life, he probably thought his art wasn't good, and now it's amazing and world renowned. So
Mhm.
don't let
Definitely.
people tear you down.
Exactly. I'll add Emily Dickinson to that list, who wrote a bunch of poems and hid them from everyone. No one found them until after her death.
Mm-hmm.
And Anne Frank, who just started writing a journal to keep her sanity in isolation and now has become one of the most read documents of all time. So
That
those
sounds
things are
very,
powerful.
sounds very relative to our experiences right now.
Yeah, a little bit, a
Journaling
little
in
bit,
isolation.
a little bit, a little bit.
Oof.
So
So,
yes.
some DIY interventions for you. Something really easy to create is a vision board. And I think we're going to try to include pictures of some examples that we have on this video. So, vision boards are great because you can use them to set goals for yourself. You can manifest things into your life. You can really keep things at the forefront of your mind because sometimes I get sidetracked personally and I lose sight of the bigger picture. But I have my vision board right next to me. It's right in eyesight. Like I'm looking at my computer right now. If I turn my head a little bit, I'm looking right at my vision board for this year. Um, I'll include it as an example, but I just really like these because you could draw them, you can just write words, you can cut and paste different like pieces of paper, magazines, you could go like collaging. You can really do it any way you want. You can do combinations of things. It's honestly really fun and it just helps remind you what is important to you and what you'd like to focus on. Some of the things I put on here, I didn't even really consciously think of, if that makes sense. Like, I just put what I felt was right to go on here. And it allows you to gain some insight into yourself, which is cool.
Definitely. Yeah. I think there's a lot of stuff that takes shape and you might not even know at the time you're making it what it's intended to be for you. Sometimes those messages come up at the most random times when you don't expect, and you see patterns and things, or you kind of make the meaning of something you've created much later. I'll share this because I thought of it here, but I used to work at the fitness centers on campus, and one summer, we had to make flyers or a painted banner for free week that was coming up at the start of the semester. And the paint was just left over. We had some paper, so I would spend my shifts in the last couple weeks of the summer just making things. They were not anything clear. They were very abstract. And years later, looking through them, they made so much sense to the context I was in, right? Like I was about to graduate and I was trying to sort through a relationship I was in. And then all of the things that I was looking at spoke so much to what my experiences were at the time. And I had no idea. I just thought they were silly, weird paintings that I was making, but became something that meant so much more a couple years later. So it does show the power of our expression. Sometimes we get the message when we're ready for it and allow that process to come out and maybe have your past self enlighten you in the future. It's kind of a nice time travel. But
Mhm.
then I can't help but talk about writing when it comes to creativity, especially for projects or checking in with yourself. So this researcher, James Pennebaker, has studied writing techniques with college students. A lot of his research was at UCLA and college students specifically. So he broke the sample sizes or the sample groups into two different activities. One was writing 15 minutes for 4 days consecutively about a trauma or a big stressor in their lives. And the other group was writing about something trivial, like their day to day stuff, like what was going on for them. So they found that in these studies, the students who wrote about something traumatic or stressful for them um, reported improved moods and had less physical health issues over the course of the next 6 months. So that semester, for example, those students visited the health center much less, and they reported feeling better about their semester and how things were going. And a lot of that is because we're expressing what's going on inside ourselves. So people who journal kind of know this. It's a space to just clear your head, to check in with yourself, but it doesn't require a ton of effort or perfection. So 15 minutes a day for 4 days in a row, writing about something stressful, like see what that's like for yourself. Give yourself the space to do something like that and know that you don't have to share it. You could throw it out, but it's totally for you. So writing can be powerful.
Yes, writing is so powerful. I was reflecting on this concept exactly yesterday because I've been journaling a lot. I love to journal, but I think just the last week, maybe week and a half, I've been really overwhelmed and stressed and just like all around like, I'm fine. I feel pretty good in terms of my mood now, but that's because I started writing again. I took like a break from journaling because I was so busy, and I found that that really adversely affected my mood and my well-being. I had more headaches. I was like just feeling not great. So, journaling really does make a difference, and
Mhm.
it's just purely you. I think that's
Yes,
my favorite thing. It's all you all the time.
totally. Just for you.
Yes. And okay, so as always, we're gonna end with some quotes. I'm so sad that we're almost done. I
I
really
know.
could talk about so many more things.
Mhm.
Um, one of the quotes for this podcast about creativity is by, of course, Brene Brown. Here she is again. Creativity is the way I share my soul with the world. I love this. Yes, 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 yes. I love it. I
All the
definitely
way.
think that because creativity is a way for engaging in self expression and just truly being yourself, this is so accurate, and your soul is beautiful. Even if
Mhm.
there's some stuff going on with you that is not great, it's all beautiful.
Mhm. Definitely. And I'm going to add to this because it came to me as you're saying this. I almost feel like language and talking and describing things, like tools, the words are tools. And sometimes we just don't have the right tools to convey what we need to convey.
Mhm.
So being creative in whatever capacity allows us to share what's going on internally that can't be put into words. And I
Mhm.
love that. So I feel like that's probably the soul part right there.
Yeah. Aw, that's sweet.
It was nice. It was nice. Okay. It just kind of clicked for me.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then my quote is: "The creative adult is the child who survived," by Ursula Le Guin. I love this for a lot of reasons, but like I mentioned before, you were this creative being as a child and just went with things and made things how you wanted to, when you wanted to, in whatever way you wanted to. Whether that was building dirt piles in your backyard or scribbling in crayons on your walls, you were a creative being. And that part of you is still very much alive. It's just sometimes gets a little covered by the adult responsibilities and being a professional and
Mhm.
living in the adult world of productivity and perfection. And it doesn't have to be that way. It can be way more flexible. So
Yeah.
let that inner child come to the surface once in a while.
Yeah, so that made me think of another concept from the class that you taught, the weirdly abledness
Mhm,
as a
mhm.
kid. Ugh, okay, we're gonna put a pin in that because I would like to revisit that
We
stuff.
should.
Yeah, let's revisit that in a future episode because
Mhm.
that is so important to talk about too, especially in
Mm,
terms of creativity.
totally. Oh, that's exciting. Yeah,
Oh,
let's do that.
yay! Well, okay, that's all we have for you today, but there's definitely going to be more because, as you can tell, we're both like thinking of more things to talk about as we're talking about this.
Always, always.
That's what we were talking about at the beginning. You have so many ideas and then you just keep going. But
It's true.
we're going to
It's
have
true.
to set some personal boundaries here and just put a pin in it and come back.
Yep. A never ending, never ending.
Yeah.
So our next episode will be episode number 7, and we will be covering self-medicating.
Ooh, yes.
We'll get a
Hmm.
little deep, a little deep.
Get a little deep. Well, thanks for listening today.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
guess that's it.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Go be creative with it.
Yes, get creative.